Hey guys and girls, and welcome to tonight's Tuesday Night Live. I'll just wait for you to start hopping online and we'll get into today's discussions. And I've got some cool things to talk about. For some reason, there's no one loading up at the moment, so I'll give it a little while. If you can hear me, see the video, smash up the like, give us a comment. Don't know if there's a technical glitch there, but the viewers are starting to pop in. Smash up the like if you can hear us, send us a little message, and we'll get on with the show tonight. Cool. I know we're working now, folks. It might be this algorithm that Facebook doesn't like. It might be me that doesn't like. It could just be, the way that certain platforms are behaving nowadays. So we will be working on moving to other platforms as well. Make sure that you always have the notifications and the bell icon on with the web page so you can see us when the videos go live. So anyway, let's get into it. I'm not going to wait all night for that to work. Today, I've got only a few news articles today. I've been pretty busy. I've been on the road for the last couple of months, actually. I'm about 6 weeks behind on emails, and 6 weeks behind on emails. Been doing tremendous sort of deals out there and amazing deals happening out there in the country. And done a speaking event last week. Shout out to everyone from Victoria that was very lovely having us, myself and my team from Sydney. And so with the articles today, I'm a bit light on, but straight to the point today, straight to the point. So I'm going to just pull up this, just a chart. This chart here, it is let's give you the specific word for it. It's called the Serious Delinquent Auto Loan chart. It's a serious delinquency and it skyrockets to the 2010 high. So if we look at where we are at the moment, the amount of debt that's in the auto car market is currently at $1.63 trillion. That's in the US. So that's US debt currently. If we go back to say 2006, where it peaked, we're not even $1 trillion. So the car loans in the market have doubled over the course of the last decade, 15 years, 17 years. Wow, getting old, folks, getting old. 20 years if you look at 2006, really. So in the GFC, let's call it $800 billion worth of auto car loans, currently at 1.63. So since say 2008 to 2024, we've doubled. The time that in 2010 when the GFC happened, you can see that the blue line is the delinquency. So serious delinquencies are normally under 2%, and the GFC they skyrocket to 3.5%. So that's a fairly big whack, right? Like considering that these are serious, so these are ones that are like 3 months or more, they're getting repoed and stuff like that. So that's where we were in 2010. Here we are in 2024, and we're at 2.88%. So we're sort of getting back to where we were. When did it happen? It happened in 2022. And what happened in 2022? They pivoted and they changed the direction of monetary policy. They were seeing that we'll go. If you just look at this and think of it in inflationary cycle, what happened at this period when there was low delinquencies? We saw inflation. We looked here, inflation wasn't it was getting under control. It was they were putting the pressure on the market, and then suddenly Corona came. It got pretty hard, and then it collapsed because they were just printing endless amounts of money. But now they've taken all that liquidity out of the market, and here we are seeing it skyrocket. So that's just one bit of interesting information. Go look at the delinquencies in auto and in cars, and you can see the other thing as well. I think it's called the Baltimore Index, which is the shipping routes and the amount of ships that are on the water and the ships that are at docks. You can tell through recessions that the amount of ships that come are much more lesser than what they are in a time of a boom. And a time of a boom, there's a lot more activity happening out there. In a time of recession, there's not as much transaction happening, hence less stock that's floating around and being moved throughout the market. So one little bit of data there. But I'm going to go to our friends over at New Zealand. Let's have a look at this. So I've got two articles here. Let's read the first article. This is on Wednesday, the 9th of October, which was only last week. And it says the Reserve Bank of New Zealand slashes interest rates again by 50 basis points to 4.75%. So interesting there. That was on the 9th of October. In short, the Reserve Bank of New Zealand has cut its official rate by 50 basis points following a 25 basis point decrease in August, flagging concerns about subdued economic activity, weak business investment, and consumer spending. And recent moves by the RBNZ represent a stark change from earlier this year when it flagged further hikes. It's funny that, folks, we've been talking about this, and we're right on the shores of Australia. It just doesn't happen here. And the data is overlapping. I don't have my chart pack here from the RBA, but I've shown you many times over on here the fact that when rates start turning, you see them fall much faster than what they went up. So they never went up. They all went up at 25 basis points. They never went up at 50 basis points, 100 basis points, and stuff like that. They cook the frog slowly, but when they have to, rip it out, they move very fast. So here we are. New Zealand Central Bank dropped interest rates another 50 basis points. So it started with 25, now it's another 50. So it's 75 basis points, 0.75% rate cut in 2 months, right? In 2 months. And you'd think, okay, well, surely they've got to leave it at that. Because what's next? Further rate cuts are expected, with some economists forecasting another 50 basis points move late next month. The RBNZ will closely be watching inflation due to the data due out late October and the job figures released in early November. As Australians await stronger signals that rates of reprieve is imminent here, across the Tasman, New Zealand central banks again have taken the knife blow. Don't agree though. You get the point, folks. You get the point. So then I get this article. And this is on the 14th of October. So this was yesterday's article, right? So they've dropped the rates last month, and they've dropped the rates this month. And then we've got this article that's come out. New Zealand is tipped to slash rates the most since happened, right? Calls for New Zealand Central Bank to slash interest rates by the most since the onset of the scandemic in 2020 are now growing louder amid a rapid deterioration of the country's economy. Several pundits say the Reserve Bank of New Zealand should cut the cash rate by at least 75 basis points when it meets next month, ahead of a key report that is likely to show inflation is below the 3% target. So they're talking potentially another 75 basis points. So if we look at that, we've got 3 months. We've got August, 6 weeks later, which is just last week, and then we've got 6 weeks' time, or 5 weeks' time from now, and we've got a 25, a 50, and then we've got another 75. So it's 150 basis points. It's 1.5%. Right? So I always think, and I always encourage people. Today I'm going to ask questions from the community that you guys have got. So if you've got any questions, flick them in the question box. But people out there, I see that there's these different markets, and I look at my investors that I deal with, and if interest rates were to drop, their servicing would improve. There's so many investors, right? You watching here, you'll be thinking, if I could get a loan today, I'd go buy a property, right? Because I want to take advantage of what's happening out there in the marketplace. So now let's imagine they drop the interest rates 150 basis points or 1.5%. That means that your servicing will improve. You can go and get more equity out. You can go and buy more property. That means that there'll be more activity in the market, which is already bloody hot, right? They haven't done anything to the property market. They've been pushing interest rates up, but then the property market's been going up at a greater rate than the interest rates have been going up, which is the problem people should be thinking about out there. So you're looking at, you know, what you should be thinking about and forecasting. We're going to see a mother of all booms. We're going to see a hyperinflation occur. Whilst the hyperinflation may not occur in the first quarter of 2025, we can see the data that's out there has been pushing this inflation along, and it's from a very weak currency throughout all nations around the world. So, looking at where to moving forward, one can only prognosticate of how that data would look, and it's not going to look pretty for a lot of people out there. It's going to look very pretty for a lot of people, or a small group of people. But make sure that the moves that you're making are the right moves. And I know, interest rates going up, inflation hitting people, their business might be doing shit, their job might not have as many hours as it did before, whatever the case may be, that, it could be a tough time out there. And it's like, how do I hold on to these things? Well, a year of pain might seem like all eternity, but when you get out the other side of a year of pain, it's like, wow, I'm so glad I went through this. So it's not like if you go to the gym, you want to, get jacked like, Schwarzenegger, it doesn't come without ripping those muscles, and that's what, leads to growth. So, just bear that in mind, because I think we're on the eve of something very, very special. And in 2 months' time, 3 months' time, we're going to see collapsing businesses and very bad things out there in the media. I think that we're in for a very big storm, and smart money will be making moves, and weak hands will be losing assets, and that's the opportunity to take advantage of the market out there at that point. So, moving on to my next article, this one here. When the RBA cuts rates, housing affordability relief may only be temporary for first home buyers. So, housing is about to become more affordable. That's the good news. I could have probably wrote it and said, that's what you think, right? It could be as early as next month, but it won't be any later than early in the new year. But before you break out the bubbly, a word of caution, if you're a first home buyer, most likely will be fleeing and possibly minuscule improvement. Rate cuts are in the wind. While they certainly improve housing affordability, the downside to the new entrants is that housing affordability is at an all-time low. So just like any good Ponzi scheme, you've got more entrants coming into the Ponzi scheme. That's how the creators of the scheme get ahead. And when the media ask me about, hey, should I, are we in a bubble or whatever? We're in a bubble. We're in a currency bubble. We're in a debt-fueled orgy rave out there, and everybody's living off this fiat Ponzi scheme. And when that Ponzi scheme pops, right, it's that's just what happens. So looking at it, there's going to be a whole. We've seen these booms, right? They've occurred, right, throughout decades. But if you notice, the booms are becoming much more higher and lower, much more extreme, much more shorter. A boom and bust cycle in the previous. I'm just going to draw it here, right? Just going to draw, if I can get it out of my mind and into a piece of paper here. Actually, that doesn't look good. I'll draw a nice one. I don't know how to draw it, but I'll draw it. This is what I'm trying to get out of my head here. Give me 2 seconds, guys. I don't know how to explain this, right? So you get these boom bust cycles, right? And let's call it from a peak to a trough. And you're going up, and it goes up a little bit, right? Then it goes down a little bit, then it goes up a bit and down. And some of these are longer periods in between cycles. So like it might be a 5-year boom and a 5-year bust, or a 7-year boom and a 7-year bust. But then, as we're seeing in times like today, and I warned of this back in 2017, that we would see it looking, if we zoom into like where we're looking at now, it would look more like that, where the boom and busts are much quicker and shorter in duration. So we've seen in the last 4 years, we've seen 2 busts, 2 booms in a period of 4 years. We're about to see another big boom, but they're going to become more wild and more shorter and rapid and impressive. So looking at it, the news articles are starting to I don't trust them, but they normally write after things start happening. But yeah, that would have some level of common sense to it. That when rates start changing tide, there's going to be people coming out of the woodwork, right? And yeah, there's going to be suckers coming out, and they're going to get slaughtered, and they're going to get in for big amounts of debt and all those sorts of things. So yeah, like I guess the question is are you ready for it? And if you're not, get yourself ready. And if you are ready for it, then congratulations and a high five. Keep the questions coming, keep the comments coming. I'll come back to them later. So here's an article. I've got to love politics, right? I'm going to share with you a conversation I had the other week. I got contacted by the media. They wanted to do an article, and I knew it was going to be wild. I just said, send them over, right? And the person I spoke to, they were very lovely, and so nothing bad on that front. But it was like I think they were a quality, an equality journalist, asking me questions about tax cuts, right, and negative gearing, and how negative gearing is apparently I think that it might be I may have benefited from it because I'm so successful with being a property investor. So they wanted to get my input, and I love these things because I've had lots of these political debates of a lot of people see me on TV back in the day, and they're like, oh no, good kid, right? Getting 20 properties, 50 properties, 100 properties, 200 properties, whatever. But then I realised that I was placed there. I was placed there for an agenda. I was placed there, and that's why when Corona came, I was like, hey, I see the agendas here, which wasn't too far wrong from that. But they wanted my view for a quality journalist. Wanted my view for how I've benefited from negative gearing because I'm just some bad guy or whatever, right? And I was like, look, had a little chat, some pleasantries, and then she said, yeah, so I'm assuming you've benefited dramatically with negative gearing. And I said, anyone that has a business that loses money will go bankrupt. Why would I want to go and have a property that loses money, potentially to get some money back later? That it's just all a scam. So I said, negative gearing sucks, and you should get rid of it. And I don't think it was the answer that they were looking for, right? And looking at the the conversation, we talked about certain things, and it was very political about labour, and then the question said, well, you've got all these properties. What do you think the Greens would have to say about you taking all these properties that homeowners could have? And I said, look, you're never going to publish my article, but if you wanted to put the facts in there, you'd talk about the central banks printing all this currency, causing the real inflation. It's got nothing to do with the politicians. And I said that if the Greens would have anything to do with it, I think the viewers would be quite impressed that there's someone that's preserving affordable housing out there. And she goes, well, what do you mean by that? And I said, well, there used to be about 30% of properties were under $400 per week, but there's less than like 3% that's now under $400 per week. And I said, I probably, between myself and my investors and the communities that I know, we probably represent half of that affordable stock. So if the government's looking at some stock, and the Greens wanted to point fingers at this capitalist pig of a human being, being myself and all you guys that are my clients and investors, then they should be thanking us for the fact that we're still providing that ability for affordable properties in this country. And she was like, oh yeah, very nice. And I threw her off guard. And I said to this person, when are you going to be publishing it? And it was a very hot story. I was on a Friday, and I was expecting, it'll be tomorrow in the Saturday newspaper because it was a very hot topic the other week. And they said that probably in the next 2 weeks we'll let you know when and if it goes to it. And I instantly just went, well, the news doesn't want the real truth, right? It was very good content I gave, and when I gave them the content that they like, I'm on every single news outlet, right? But when I say what's really happening in the world, and I can't be that puppet anymore, right? So it's interesting. It's interesting. So I see these articles and it says it's easy to buy your 10th house than your first. The Unions New South Wales joins a push to reform negative gearing and capital gains tax, right? And I think the last 5 elections, you've seen, oh, we're going to scrap negative gearing, right? And it happened over the years, and there has been negative gearing has been played with, and politicians have lost elections, and we've had lots of bad things have happened. Rents have skyrocketed and doubled from it. So I'd encourage them to remove negative gearing because it doesn't really benefit me. There's ways that you could restructure yourself, so you could rent yourself a property that you own to a business, and then rent that out as a corporate entity and have subscribers to your get outside of the rental um, you know laws that are out there. So there's it's Justin, you're right. It's I don't normally give them the time of day, but I thought it would be fun, right? I enjoyed the title that they had, and it was good. So yeah, it was going to be fun. So so it goes in to say the Union of New South Wales has thrown its support behind the reform of negative gearing, capital gains tax, union secretary, blah, blah, the peak body for unions in New South. What's a union have to do with property or finance or whatever, right? Well, what the union is has subscribers to it, which, I was in Melbourne last week, so I was walking around the city. I had a couple of appointments in the city, right? I picked up the keys for our office down there and a few things like that. And I was looking at every corner, and I had to go to a meeting to see someone, and they're doing every corner's got a new renovation or new building or new construction. It feels like a smart city coming in there, right? Just like Canberra and just like Parramatta and Sydney, and just it feels like that. But when I was in there, I was walking down the street, and I feel like when I go to Melbourne, it's like these guys in Sydney, they're more aggressive, right? It's like it's kind of funny, right? Um, so I'm walking through, and there's like the lollipop lady, and I just felt oozing of union, right? There's no, before a Wolfie rocks up to my office tomorrow, right? It's like whatever, right? But I was sitting there, and I'm fucking walking down here, and they go, oh no, 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 there's a crane moving over there, and if it was to splat. And I'm seeing all these obedient people sitting there, and they're just like, oh, I better sit there, might as well put my mask on. Oh, am I in line for something else? Right? I felt that, and then I was like, "Fuck this! I'm too busy. I've parked my car, in a no parking spot. I need to get into a meeting. I need to go and see someone. I'm walking, right?" And it was just crazy the level of union feeling that I had there. So yeah, looking at it, why is the unions commenting, right? Because it's all political, right? They're all funders. They've got agendas and they've got all that. You know, imagine if they were change negative gearing, right? And they put something in. I find it impossible to happen without unless you change the whole tax system and the whole law, because negative gearing and the way that it would work the same as a business having any sort of deduction. You take the business deductions out of there, and then suddenly, so if they do touch it in any capacity, then set yourself up a PTY Ltd. I don't know how they would or whatever, and then operate your business and rent it out via those companies. Like there's all different ways. Your company is now the tenant to your property. There's ways around it, but it would affect business tax, right? And that would affect all the companies out there and whatnot. But I find it interesting these unions, they benefit from new construction happening, right? And they're in hands with their commie comrades, which are in charge. So the agendas are very much aligned. Just like that person asking me about the what the Greens have to say. I don't care what the Greens have to say, and they'll provide lots of affordable housing. So how about that? Just go on a little rant. So yeah, we're looking at articles about negative gearing being scrapped. I don't care about negative gearing. I don't think that it's going to get scrapped. I don't think they can really do much about it. We're seeing the interest rates are dropping globally. We're seeing there's recessionary indicators going off, whether it be the Baltimore index, the amount of ships that are out in the ocean, the amount of vehicles getting repossessed. and the amount of jobs that are being, the jobs market's in bad. A lot of the jobs market's bad because they get much better caliber and much better quality candidates. So we've got hundreds of staff and always looking to grow. So if there's a big shortage out there, if you ever do think of losing your job, you've got a great attitude. Attitude is very important. Always very happy to hear from people that want to be a part of our team. So find a way to us and send us your resume. It doesn't matter where you're at. We employ people in all different categories in all different locations all around the country. So, and if we're not doing something, we probably will be in the future in whatever industry you're in. So looking at jobs, I'll read the article. I was talking to one of my mates the other day, and you might be watching this, maybe not. He's talking about getting a new job. He's looking at some jobs, and I think it's like IT and stuff. And there was like, these guys get paid massive money, right? And a couple of grand a day, whatever. There was lots of jobs before. There was like hundreds of jobs, and now the jobs that are in that category have dropped by like $500 per day cheaper, and there's only like 20 of them instead of like 300 of them or something. So, the amount of jobs that are out there, you've got more people fighting for lesser jobs, right? What's that going to lead us to? We've got to look at that data 6 months, 12 months, 24 months down the track, and you see that we're going to end up in a deflationary cycle, which is why you're seeing New Zealand drop interest rates 25 basis points and 50 basis points, now maybe 75 basis points. It's all heading up. So this will impact that data that's coming through, which will impact the levers that are getting pulled, which they just destroy things. So, it's fun. It's exciting. Aussies being warned it might be harder to keep their jobs as business look to reduce their headcount. Australia's job market is tipped to soften when the official figures are released on Thursday. As high interest rates weaken business confidence continues to weigh down the economy. Economists are predicting another uptick in unemployment on Thursday when the ABS releases its monthly labour force figures. In September, the CBA is tipping bulk joblessness to hit 4.3. What's saying there? But here we are looking at, so it says here, since May 20, this is what I was talking about just a moment ago, right? Since May 2022, that's when our first rate hike, it seems like all eternity ago that our rates started to increase, right? So since May 2022, RBA has hiked its rates 14 meetings by 425 basis points. So, and it's held its rates over the last 7 meetings, and before that, I think it only went up once. So it was over a very quick period that it went up so high. You still see these people on rate day, right? They're like, "Oh, the interest rates might go up today, they can't come down." It's like, okay, cool. Let's see, let's watch them go up, because you can't trust this rhetoric. The commie before, what's his name? The Kardashian. What's it? Bruce Jenner, right? Before Bruce Jenner started, Philip Lowe, he came out and said that the rates will not move until 2024, right? And here we are in 2024, and the rates coming down. So that's a very quick cycle, right? It's a very quick cycle, like I was talking about with my doodling beforehand. So, yeah, lots of things out there. There's nothing crazy to write home today about or to comment on the news, which is why I'm going to get into our questions and answers. And I was thinking of, as I was reading my questions, I've got like 10, 11, 12 maybe questions from you guys written down. I was thinking of 50 Cent, 21 questions. Anyway. So some of the questions from you guys in the community, if you have further questions today, feel free to drop them in the comment section, and I will get to them a little bit later on. So first question is, how quickly should I go and try and get equity out when I buy a property? So I'm just going to cross them off as I answer them, because they're not in any specific sort of order. So there's no right or wrong about when to get equity. So I think as soon as you can get equity, you should get equity. And I'll explain this to you quite clearly. There's 2 reasons why. One is when interest rates were going up. I noticed a lot of people were like, interest rates have gone up twice. I've got to go and I'm going to wait, see what happens with the interest rates. And if the interest rates go up too high, I don't want to get any money out. And so, okay. And then later on, they're like, I really want to get my money out. Give me the money out. It's like, well, you don't service for the debt now, right? Because the interest rates have gone up. You have to go to a different bank, and that bank's only going to give you 20 grand equity, not 100 grand equity like you're going to get. So if you can get access to equity, don't ask any questions, get access to that equity, so then you've got it as powder in your pocket. If you need to pull the trigger, you've got room to go there. So it's going to get some water. Second reason why you should be getting equity as soon as you can is the obvious is when you pull your equity out, you've got more capital there, you can go buy more assets. The cash is losing its value. So if you had 100 grand and you keep it for 5 years, you're probably only spending 50 grand of your purchasing power. So if you had to spend it on the day, it would have been better. What's better than spending your cash in a high inflationary environment, spending cash that's not yours and paying the debt off with a devalued currency? That's a really cool part of it. But most importantly, if you've got the valuation there, you don't know what the valuation is going to be in 6 months' time, 12 months' time, 24 months' time. So if you've got a good valuation there that's going to give you nice yielding equity, you could always pull it out, put it in an offset account. It's not costing you anything, but it's at your disposal without you having to go to the bank. So you might be sitting there thinking, should I wait and get some equity? Well, we've seen the jobless numbers, we've seen salaries getting cut. What happens, touch wood, if you lose your job or you lose your source of income and you can't go to get a loan in the future? So if you go and get your loan in the future, and you don't have a job or something goes wrong, or your income changes, you don't have the overtime you're getting last year, what would it look like? So I think based on those answers would be why I'd try and get it as quick as I can. It's not saying go and spend it, but just having access to it because then you've got options. So yeah. I'll keep the questions coming. That last question about turning a property into a multiple occupancy property, I went and saw a multiple occupancy property that we are both familiar with, and it's actually really cool. So I've got a video of that to share with you. So just maybe send me a text later, and I'll send you the video just so you can see it. The next question that I have, I'm going to just tick these off, is a good old cash flow versus equity question, which is, should I target a property that's going to have cash flow, or should I target the property that's going to have equity or growth? And I think that's wrong. You can have both. We've all seen the taco ad with that little Mexican chick on it. Can I have one that stands or one that folds, right? So looking at the cash flow or the equity, you can have both. So if it was me, I want to see both cash flow and equity out of the deal. So, some deals are naturally higher positive cash flow. I've seen some today that I'm trying to catch up on my emails. If you're waiting for a reply or you sent me an email, I really apologise. I'm 6 weeks behind on emails. I'm trying to catch up on them. But today I was doing some of my deal allocations to my investors. I was looking at some of them. Some of them are renting, like I'm paying 250K. They're renting for 550 a week. They're giving a positive cash flow, $200 a week. That can tick both boxes. Some of them are a block of units, which they're $1 million and they give 50 grand positive, 40 grand positive, whatever. But it's like the lending requirement for that block of units is different than the lending requirement on the individual properties. So yeah, it's Lisa, I'll come to your question a little bit later. Third question is the asking price versus the real value. So I've seen this over the years as well. People sometimes look at a property and they say, I must get a price cheaper or whatever. And let's just look at two properties. I'm going to doodle again, right? I'm going to draw two properties, or my attempt of a property, right? So I've drawn two cartoony, really bad houses, right? And let's just draw some numbers on them. So this one here is 220K. So this property here is asking 220K, and I pay 230K. But Birchie, you buy the things below market value, right? I've got the house next door, which is 300K, and I've been able to get a 50 grand discount off it, and it's 250K. Right? So would you rather buy, right here the ask, pay figure. So would you rather buy the property that's asking 220 and pay 10 grand more, 230, or would you rather pay 300 grand, get a 50 grand discount for 250K? These houses both look like shit. They're both the same, right? So which one's better? Well, if they're both identical, if this one's smaller or this one's got an extra window or whatever, use a window, there's no window on it. Well then but if they're like for like, I'd rather pay an extra 10 grand than asking price and get this one. And you might be asking, well, why is that one cheaper and better value? So, well, just because the asking price doesn't mean that it's the real value of it. You need to look at and base it on recent sales and other comparables in the market and what the banks are looking at from an aspect of it. So, looking at the real value versus the asking price. The asking price is, I was talking to my nanny today, and she turned around and she was going, "I'm buying my first house and all this stuff." And I was like, "Oh, don't get emotional by it, right?" And she was buying this unit, and it was like offers from 400 to 420 or something, and then she's like offering 380, and I was like, "Don't go against the agent, right? Just do whatever you need to do." And then the agent came back and said 425, and it's like the agent's playing you. And she's like, "Oh, I feel like he is." And I printed out RP data. I sent her 17 sales that happened in the same block, and they're all nothing is at 420, 425. They're all at 400, 410. I was like, "If you want to do it, go do it, but it's not something I'm going to guide you on, right? You just you do you." So she thanked me about it afterwards because the value that was there, the agent played a trick. So if that property was on for 360 grand and she could pay 380 for it, it'd be like, that's a fantastic buy, go buy it. So I think a lot of people get caught up on what an agent puts on the price. And if you look at a lot of markets out there, and especially over the last couple of years, properties are selling 50K over asking price, right? If you go to Perth, I was in Perth buying stuff for like 130 grand a few years ago, 150 grand a few years ago. Now you're looking at 500 grand. We bought houses for people for 250 grand and now selling for 700,000. So, if you put those properties up for 600,000, you'll get buyers, will be 20 buyers offering 700, 680. That's just the market that's out there. So I don't want to go to further to asking price versus real value. I wouldn't want to, I don't want to get caught up in a hot market where every second property is selling for over the asking price because you're going to get ripped a new one. A lot of people will look at the price of the property and be like, "Oh, it's great. They've doubled this last year. It must be a good area to invest." That's a risk to me, and that's further to the next part. And I don't have a question on this, but I'll add a part B to that question. And that is, if I can buy a property cheaper than what it was 10 years ago, people will sit there and think, well, it was cheaper to buy the property 10 years ago, cheaper today than it is 10 years ago. It must be a dud investment. I want a property that's not going to do that, right? If I go through and look at Sydney, Brisbane, Gold Coast, Perth, Townsville, Gladstone, I was buying properties in Gladstone at 60,000 a piece. Everyone else was asleep. I was in there just shuffling them off to buy investors, right? Those things are now 300 grand a piece, and there's a big heated market there. And it's like, I'm not buying those things at that price because there's risk that's associated with them. So I look at the deals and I look at what what value we're getting from it. So if we look at Melbourne, people in Melbourne, I was there last week, people were like, "Oh, it's tough. It's like And a lot of properties people bought in Melbourne thinking it's a capital city to go to, a capital city of choice. Those things are cheaper, 10 years later than what they were. So people that are in that market will consider it's a very bad market. But if I'm looking at a market, I'm like, hey, there's value. So I'm not saying go buy in Melbourne, right? There's good and bad. I buy in every corner of the country, but I'm just using it as examples there as to, if the property sold cheaper than it did 10 years ago, well, you can't buy anything cheaper in 2024 than you could in 2014. I've got some properties I bought today in a different capital city that were right in the CBD, which were 200,000, and the owner paid 225,000 in 2008. So that's almost 15, 17 years ago now. So, wow, 2008 was 17 years ago, folks. Um, so yeah, look for value, the real underlying value to an asset, very, very important. The next question is, how do I know what a property rent is? So looking at the value of rent, because I know single-handedly when I'm buying assets for myself and for my investors out there, what they're rented for, I have no confidence over whatever the tenant is paying. And I prefer that a property is either vacant or the lease is coming up to expiry. It really hurts me when I see a property. It doesn't hurt me that bad because I'm like, the person selling it's a dickhead. And the reason why is that they're oblivious to the fact of what the real estate agent's done. And then they um, they they don't realise that the agent screwed them with bad advice. So what I mean by that is I'd say 90% plus of the properties that I'm buying are under rented by $50 a week. So I pick up something that's renting for 300 a week and we can put the rent up to 350 a week. There's a good news story for those greenies that I was talking about beforehand, right? Um, the the rents are severely under rented, and being able to push those rents up when I'm buying a property, you can look at a property and say, hey, that's what it's rented for, but that rental value is not. So I want to look at, what it's rented for today. How long do I have to cop that, disgraceful rent that's on there? And what will it be like once I do push the rent up? And the rent could go up, $50, $80, $100. That could be a 20% increase, 30% increase on that deal in 3 months' time or 6 months' time. So the yield might be 6% now, but it'll go to 8% by a couple of little, emails pushed, a couple of buttons pushed out there. So, don't get caught up on what the rent is and what it can be. So, um, I had a question the other day about insurance, and question I had about insurance was one of my investors couldn't get insurance, and I had a joke about it, and I was like, "Don't worry about it, right? They could get insurance, but it's a bit more expensive." And I was like, I was thinking to myself about self-insuring. And this ain't no advice to anyone, but I was like, the amount of insurance that I pay, I could be possibly paying $1 million a year of insurance. I'm like, maybe I should self-insure. Maybe you should get your own self-insurance. Like, there's all different things to do out there, but sometimes insurance can be high. If we look at Cairns, for example, right? Cyclone Yasi went through in 2011, and after that, the insurers all pulled out of the market. There's only two insurance companies in Cairns for a period of about 6 or 7 years. And then after that, all the insurers started to come back into the market, and they were fine, but there was no competition there. And what happened is that the insurance policies went and skyrocketed. It was due to a period of 5, 6, 7 years, and people would look at it and go, "Oh, it's no good to be buying." It's like, well, the insurance policies are so high at the moment, but it's not always going to be high. It could be, but if it's so high and the premiums are so great, then you get competition coming in. They're like, "This is a good commodity I can build." This is how like a hedge fund would work. You go, let's build some insurance packages and package up insurance and sell it out there, and will be a profitable business. So, looking at the insurance aspect of it, just like a strata levy, just like rents, just like insurance, interest rates, they do go in different directions at times. So, you could buy a property that has good insurance, and then something happens, I don't know, World War II, they bombed Darwin, right? Sydney, I don't know, Warrigan would be a damn good flood, right? And wipe out half of Sydney, and then it'd be the biggest flood in the history since Noah came with his big boat. Um, so anything could happen in any location. Just understand that times change and markets change, and they do change. So look for that change, that the opportunity for that thing to change, and not that it's at the prettiest, the prettiest time that it could be in its cycle. So um, thanks, Paul. Um, I've got a question about things not going right. Like I talk about lots of good things that do go right. Um, what things don't go right? And I was thinking about a lady, it's a client of ours, and she'd been texting me about a situation, and I said to Patrick, tell her to watch this. So she's watching, she knows who she is. Maybe we can talk about that as one thing. So I'm going to talk about a roof, a building issue. Um, and then maybe we could look at interest rates. Some people have bought properties out there and the interest rates have gone up. And it's affected a lot of people, right? It's affected me, it's affected you, it's affected everyone else. But there's people out there with, I think if we're hurting and we've got rents we can push up and stuff like that, imagine the average homeowner that's got $1 million mortgage and they've got two incomes coming in. They can't just put up the rent because there's no rent to put up and all those sorts of things. So, you know, interest rates affect a lot of people. I think I said it beforehand. With the equity releases, like people get a property and they're like, I can pull out 50 grand equity. I'll wait 6 months, maybe we get 100 grand equity out, right? I don't need it now. Don't worry about it. They come back and they're like, hey, you can only get 20 out. It's like, well, you can't get anything out. You don't service for it, whatever. So you need to understand. I think everybody needs to understand that at all times we all have a piano that's above our head that's being held up by a crane, like those people unloading stuff in Melbourne, right? And that could snap, right? And 2020, 2019, right? We all know what happened, right? Put your mask on and behave, right? I think that showed. Doesn't matter how good you were, the best employee, been with the company for 40 years, it doesn't change a thing, right? Something can go wrong. You got your money in the account, in the bank. You're a good boy or girl. You've got, $1 million cash. Cash is king. Well, no, cash flow is king. Cash is trash. You put your $1 million in the account in 2019 and you end up in a coma, you end up in jail, you end up wherever. And you get it in 2024, just 5 humble years later, and you go, I'll get my $1 million back. $1 million doesn't buy you anything. Well, it does. But it doesn't buy you what $1 million bought you before. So your cash has a risk attached to it. So there's lots of things out there. It's how do you minimize that risk and how do you stop the risk from being terminal, right? And I think a lot of people make decisions and they tie the legs together. And I was talking to someone yesterday, and he's bought a property and bought some more property, bought a house to live in. You know who I am talking to if he's watching. And he said, oh, my buffer's a little bit lower than what it was. I'm very, very stressed, right? Should I sell? I'm like, you're getting equity out, right? Like your position's fine. He's like stressed because that's the biggest level of stress that he had to deal with. And it was a call that we had, and it was like, I feel sometimes when I'm talking to people, it's more like a counselling session rather than a financial planning session. And that's for lots of people I speak to. Half the time I'm speaking to people, it's like, hey, there's a hurdle. How do we overcome that? And mindset growth and observing things and putting things in perspective is very, very crucial in that journey because it does get stressful. It can be lonely. There's not, it's not like there's a community. There's lots of you guys and girls here. There's times when I catch up with you guys and can mingle with other people that are on that same journey. But yeah, it can get lonely. So you haven't done it before. When was the last time you bought 20 properties? Last time you climbed Mount Everest? Whatever it is, like if you haven't done it before, it is scary. So things can go wrong. And if you're a pro and you're too cocky or whatever, it's like you see those Red Bull people that jumping off planes and jumping off buildings, right? And they do successful and crazy things, right? You're not going to get me on a plane. You get me on top of the building, that's fine. I'm not scared of heights, I'm not scared of being up in the sky, it's just I don't like a plane. But get me in a plane and push me out of it, ain't going to happen, right? But there's people that do that every single day of the week, and suddenly something goes wrong, right? They're missed by a minuscule second because something they didn't pull the trigger or the chain or whatever. So I think it's analysing that risk and looking at all the natural forces and factors that are out there in your world that could come and drop a hammer on you and hurt you. So on that note of things not going right, I've got this lady who's an investor of ours. I've got like, I think maybe 40, 45 properties in the last 3 years or so. I should do a podcast with her actually. I'm going to do some podcasts with you guys as well. So if you guys are interested in doing a podcast with us or a live or whatever, send us a message, send me a text, whatever. Excited to have these chats because I think sharing the stories is important. But this lady bought all these properties and she came the other day. There's an issue with the property. I need to look into it, which is to do with the roof. It's an old asbestos roof. It's a house. We paid $90,000 for the property a year ago or something. It's renting for about $400 per week now. And the property needs a new roof, and she got some quotes, and it is a more regional property. Let's say regional, more remote property. Everything's in a region, Sydney region, but more of a remote property. And the question is, hey, should I spend 50K on fixing a roof? And from Pat has had conversations with her. I haven't had a chance to even open the message check, so I'm so far behind. And I was like, don't do anything, right? I said, tell her, don't do anything. I want to look at this. I'll get back to her later this week. And just look at our options. I want to see the photos. I want to see what the roof looks like, right? I've had times with asbestos roofs where, the house is full of asbestos on the roof. It breaks, it deteriorates over the years. It's like fibro. And, it gets cracks and it can leak. So I want to know what's causing that because ultimately, if it's a few cracks in the roof, I've had times where I wanted to delay an expenditure to a property so I can find either a cheaper rate or I just simply don't have the money to do a 50 grand roof repair or whatever. So I've sent a tradie up there and like I find the guy with no teeth and he's happy to I'll tack it like mate, don't worry, I'll just use a tube of Sikaflex, right? Get up there with Sikaflex and here's $1,000, there's $1,000 up there. Silicon the fuck out of that roof, right? Because then it's not a repair that you're gonna. So my initial thing is silicon the fucker, right? See if you can patch it for 5 years, right? How can we push that? That's the first thing. Then the second thing is how bad is the roof, and then the third one is okay. Well, let's go and get some other quotes. Do you need the roofing company? Do you need this? What's the roof made out of? Whatever. And one of the comments that I think that when we look at this, like if we have a 90 grand property and we go, okay, a 50 grand expense, so these things happen from time to time. You do have to budget them. It's ideal if we don't have to replace a 50 grand roof, but sometimes in our life these things happen and you've got 40, 50 properties and something eventually is going to give, right? Every house doesn't just magically be brand new forever. So looking at it, if we're looking at properties that are selling in the area, you're looking at 200,000, 250,000 now. It's only been a year. It's like, well, if you have to spend it, still 140, and you've got to bring a new roof to it. And got a message here that says, "Do your best, silicon the rest." So other stories of things that haven't gone right. I remember once I got a message from a real estate agent who's a mate of mine. He's like, hey, just watching the news, you've got a street of houses, you own all the houses in the street. He goes, one's on fire, it's like burnt down. I watched it, I was like, fuck, I can see where the chopper's looking at that. I think it's either this one or this one, right? So I said to my staff, I had a staff member from that state that was in my office, just funnily enough on that day. I said, call the tenants, make sure he's at my fucking house, make sure, and I'm going through all my emails, like, where's my insurance policy? Where's my insurance policy, right? First tenant, we thought it was that one. Oh, I'm so sorry, this happened. Right? I'm like, interesting, right? Interesting. So I knew that my house had burnt down, and it's fucked. It was like a, a plume of smoke flying out of the house, but it was all asbestos, right? It's like a volcano of asbestos going everywhere. This one ain't going to be cheap, right? And then I found out it was insured. I found out that the insurance was like $500,000, and I was like, the insurance company bought the house today, right? And I was like, it's covered. That's what I have insurance for. And I got paid, and I was like, okay, that happened. Now I have a nice block of land. It's cool, right? Um, so, I've had times when other properties burned down. I've had a lot of them burned down, not from me. I actually got investigated because I had three burned down in like 3 months in two occasions, right? It's happened over the years. Um, and I remember this last time it happened was about 2019. Haven't had one burnt since. And people were coming to me like as if it was like someone had died, and it was like, oh, my condolences, right? Oh, I'm so sorry. And it's like, it just happens, right? That's why I have insurance. So I look at it like tenants trash your house. Tenants trash. If you own 10 properties and a tenant's never trashed your house, you haven't been living yet, right? You have 10 properties for 10 years, and they say the tenant lasts 1 or 2 years on average in a rental property. 1 or 2 years, there's like 50 to 100 tenants you have going in and out. You're going to tell me that you're meeting 50 to 100 people over the next decade, which are going to be in your house. You don't know anything about their life. You wouldn't be involved in the lifestyle choices that they made. And your house is all going to come back and every rent's going to be paid? No, right? So it's putting processes in place to make sure that you can, minimize the risk and the damages. And if you do get a damage, I place to get trash, and I'm like, cool, got to fix it. Insurance comes to the table. Yep, we've got to sign off on that because that's what needs to be fixed. So I'm getting a new reno here. I'm getting repairs, right? But those repairs are going to naturally add value to it. New kitchen, new bathroom. I had one where it's in a block of units. It's only a 10-year-old block of units, and all the sewer blew up in my unit, and there was shit all the way up the walls. And it was like 2 foot up the walls, right? The Strata wouldn't, the insurance company wouldn't give me my property back for 2 years, and it was dated. It was like, do you remember when you were a kid and you had those bleached hair tips and you're watching Five, like Everybody Get Down or whatever, right? Like back in the day, Backstreet Boys, right? It was dated. The kitchen and bathroom were dated in with Backstreet Boys time, right? And it looked decent, but it was like, okay, 2023 or 2022, whenever it was, Hampton style. Let's make it look cool. So yeah, get a free reno, right? They took out everything. They took out the skirting boards, the gyprock, the electrical and the stud work was all that was there. And that property's was renting for 350. Now it's getting 650. So these things. How do you minimise risk? So stories aren't always great. There's always, I've got battle scars. I've got, I don't have any scars. I don't have any holes in me, right? I'm not 50 Cent. I've got a couple of holes where I've had Rio bar go through my hand and stuff like that. But you don't get there just by waking up and going, cool, I've made it, right? There's always going to be a challenge, but it's how you handle that challenge, how your mindset views the challenge, and how you can benefit from it. So, um, this one's similar to the last one I talked about with equity. Um, what to do when you have access to equity? Should you wait or get it now? Get it as soon as you can. To that, how early can you get equity is probably another question, right? How quickly can you get it? Can you settle a property today and get equity today? I reckon probably 20% of my investors would get equity the week they settle. And my finance team, when I walk around the office, they're like, "Oh no, Nathan's coming. Let's put the phone to it here, right? Oh, busy, busy, busy. Oh, no. It's like they're probably watching. They're like, oh, he's busted me, right? Because they come in and like, who's got equity? Let's get some equity out. And it's like, I've just done the loan. They haven't even paid 1 month's mortgage, and you're asking me to refinance it out, right? And what mortgage company would do that? It's not something that gets done often out there, but that's what we specialise in. So I'd say 20% of them we do pretty much straight away. Sometimes we have to wait a year, maybe another 20% or 30%. Generally, 3 months, 6 months to be able to pull out the equity would be on average. But as soon as you can get it, I think the better. So it's just capital that's sitting there being wasted. If you're not using it, you're not using it, you're losing it. So here we go. How do you manage the challenges of property maintenance and tenant maintenance when you hold a large property portfolio? Good question. So as you build out a portfolio, I always said everyone have a buffer of like 5 grand per property. So if you've got 10 properties, you should have 50k. Whether that's 50k cash in your bank or whether it's 50k in, I don't know, some shares or an offset account or whatever, have access to liquidity in case something goes wrong. Chance of having 10 properties, tenants move out, trash your property, all that at the same time is slim. So it's it's managing your repairs, your maintenance. It is a task, right? You're running a business. As you build out a property portfolio, understand that you're running a business. Treat your property investing like a business, right? Things go wrong. Don't be a tight ass. Don't, in 10 years' time, in every property of mine, I think to myself here, if in 10 years everything in my property fucks up, because it will, right? Kitchen, bathroom, paint, carpet, blinds, hot water system, a stove. I walk into properties. I had something the other day, the trap houses, right, in Gold Coast, and there was like 4 of them just getting gutted. And I'm going to leave the kitchens and that because they're just junk. They're going to get knocked over in the future. But I was like, save as much as you can, right? It's very different reno to some of the other renos that I've done recently. And this reno, I was like, don't do much. And then the hot water system, and the hot water system was being used up until recently, and it was from 2004. I'm like, that's 20 years out of a hot water system. That's pretty fucking good, right? When I do a reno, I like to do the whole reno, right? Then I have to go back for a decade. But I think to myself, if I'm spending 20 grand, paint, carpet, kitchen, bathroom, treat it like a business, just like a cheeseburger, right? I know my tiles. I've got 2 types of tiles that I use, right? Whichever shop it is, if it's in Sydney, it's from one shop. If it's from anywhere else, it's Beaumont tiles, right? Just go there. It's a basic tile. The floorboard tiles that I put in, they're a different type of tile. But all the bathrooms look the same. All the floors look the same. All the paint's all the same. I got asked the other day from another tradie, hey, what paint should I get on? Like 6.5. That's what I put everywhere. So I try to keep the costs cut down to a minimum. I think of using colours and materials that are going to last throughout different years, which probably won't, but I like to think that. And some things do last for a very long time, right? And looking at the renos, if you're looking at repairs, 20 grand over 10 years, that's 2 grand a year that you have to put into it. So yeah, just budgeting, repair maintenance schedules. Like, don't be alarmed if you've got to do a full reno, right? These things have to happen. But when you do the reno, you're going to get higher rent. You're going to get a return on investment. If I'm doing a reno and I'm spending 20 grand on it, I want to get an extra $200 a week. If I'm doing a reno, I'm spending 10 grand on it, I want to get $100 a week. And the reason being is if I'm putting 10 grand in and I'm getting $100 a week, that's 5 grand a year. 5 grand a year on 10 grand, that's the 50% return on investment. If the property goes up by 50k from me spending 10 or 20k, the capital's going up by 5x or 3x or whatever. But the cash flow is going up. What can you invest in? You're an investor with a property, right? Think about it this way. If you can invest 10 grand into your asset and get an extra 5 grand a year, right? So 50% return on investment. Go to the barbecue on the weekend, have a smoke, have a barbecue, have a beer. Hey, Bob, what's going on? Talk to anyone about getting a 50% return on investment. How do you get a 50% return on investment? I can't get a 50% return. Of course you can't get a 50% return on investment because you don't have all the assets that I've got. So as an investor, if I've got all these assets, then I can just put little investments into, then I can run your investing like a business. I've said it from day one. I'll say it till the day I cark it, right? Treat your investing like a business. If numbers stack up, do it. If they don't, and as a business, you can look at, you spend more money on marketing, you get a better result. You spend more money on systems, procedures, and processes. you get better results. What can you do in your investing business to improve your returns that you get? Simple as that. Number 9, what are the common mistakes new property investors are making and how to minimize, how to avoid them? There's all different mistakes that people are making out there. I think the biggest one that new investors make is emotion. That's the biggest mistake everybody makes, is emotion. Trying to do it themselves, trying to be their own property manager, trying to cut corners. Someone's trying to cut corners, you fuck up. You can cut corners if you know what you're doing and you're a pro at it, you can try and cut a few corners. But if you're trying to cut corners and you don't know what you're doing, then you're going to end up, with a big banana at the end. So, cutting corners, cutting costs. When I say cutting costs, is reducing expenses, right? But there's being a complete tight ass too, which will hurt you. Emotion of fear or emotion of greed is equally as bad, right? A fear. I've got this thing now, and if you're one of my investors and you get these messages from me, it's with love, right? But if I can't help someone, I'm going to tell them I can't help them because I've got people that I send them deals and they just get stage fright. They're like, I can't do it, right? It's like they can't perform. I don't know what it is, right? There's people that are fearful, and at the same time, they're like, I hate my job, I'm too stressed, I'm too stressed to look at this. It's like, too stressed to look at this. You're stressed because you're telling me about your job, but you're stressed enough to go, how the fuck am I going to get myself out of your job? So are your goals aligned that well, right? Is your plan or strategy strong enough? I always think back, people can't have the vision, they don't have a clear enough goal or a clear enough plan to be able to go, okay, I know what I need to do. Because when you have clarity, you can make those decisions. So you spend more time worrying about Thursday night, late night shopping, Friday night party, next holiday over the summer, whatever. But if you thought about how am I going to get myself out of this fucked up position of 40 years of life, working in a job that I hate, in a career that I don't want, whatever it may be. And, I'll just say it as it is. If you can't make it happen, stick in your job, right? So I think people get fearful, but then other people get greedy or ego, right? It's like, oh, I can do this, I can do that. I'm going to go 99%. No, trust me, this is good. The amount of times that I've been told, trust me, this is great, this is the best thing ever. I'm like, I told you it's coming on, right? I told you it's going to come on, right? So that's, a thing. So there's lots of errors that people can make. If you have a clear plan, it's like having a street directory and turn left here, turn right there, you're going to get there more safer. And you're going to not turn around and go, oh, I've got, how many times have you built something and you have the IKEA box? Don't want the instructions, don't want to read, foreign language, right? Don't want to look at all that. I know what I'm going to do. You put it together, you're like, fuck, I have to pull it half apart, I have to put it back together. It takes you 2 hours, not 1 hour. 1 hour was already annoying. Now you've got to do it for 2 hours, right? How many times have you gone, oh, it should be fine, don't worry about sat nav. Go along, take the wrong exit on the freeway, you've got to take a U-turn, right? Same things apply when you're investing. So, 10th one, how can investors mitigate risk during high interest rates? Very fitting time, very, I've got to put a little disclaimer there today on this one. I'm not going to give you any financial advice here because it could be construed what I'm thinking in my head as that. But I'm just saying these things as they come to my head. These aren't questions that I've read before or thought of an answer for. So how can I mitigate risk with high interest rates? Have a buffer. Best thing is having a buffer. If you have a buffer, well then you're going to be comfortable. How do you get a buffer? You can save up, you can sell your car, you can get a second job. Most people just go to the first one. I've got to sell. I've got to get a second job, right? Whatever. But have you thought about strategic? So many times, I spoke to someone the other day, yesterday it was actually, and I was talking to this lady, she sold a property, got 200 grand, let's call it 200 grand in cash from that. Want to get 2 more, want to keep 100 grand cash, want to spend 100 on deposits. And it's like, okay, tell me about that. And I was like, how much debt do you have? I asked the question, right? It's like, well, the debt services for another couple hundred grand. So my initial thought to her was, keep your 200 grand. You've got equity of like 250K, right? We can go touch 250K, go buy another three, four, five properties, um, and leave the cash aside. And she's like, I didn't even think I had equity there. I wasn't even thinking about that. She goes, well, heaps of equity. I'm like, well, keep 200 grand. And when you go to buy your principal place of residence, you've got the money there to go and buy your principal place of residence. And it's just like a simple thing, right? But if someone's delaying that too far, the problem is that if you've got an issue and you miss a mortgage repayment, you can't go pull out equity, right? If you don't have the hours that you had last year, or the business isn't bringing as much income, or whatever, then that's going to hold you back. So put yourself in a position to think about, okay, what are my options? Get a big piece of paper, write down things. Equity one, second job another one, selling off the second car, renting out that holiday house, um, looking at rent reviews. Right, a lot of people I speak to don't even know where the rents are at. Right? So with the rent reviews, I do have an email address. If you have a rental property, all of you guys and girls that are watching this, if you have a rental property, send me an email, payrise, word payrise, or one word, Payrise, payrise at blinkproperty.com.au. I personally look at that. There's my email address, just a little funny email address, for you guys to send me your tenancy schedule of your properties. So if you've got 5 properties, address 1, 2, 3, 4, current rent, what it has attributes to it. I review those rents. I give you my thoughts on what you should be getting for the property. You guys can do whatever you want. You can either have us manage it, or you can go and manage it. Get your current manager to do that. And the rentals increases is probably the biggest thing that's the opportunity out there. So if we combine rental increases and understand, have an understanding, have a bigger picture of it, right? Read somewhere in that article beforehand, the RBA has hiked interest rates 14 times since May 2022. That's only 2 years, folks. That's 2 years. You've had this pain in 2 years. New Zealand's dropping their rates 25, 50, 75 basis points. 150 basis points if they reduce it next month as they're forecasting it, um, in a period of 3 months, right? So these things can turn around very quickly, but it's a matter of looking at it with a clear mind and going, hang on a second. Because when the other side of this happens, if you look at what's happening out there in the markets already, prices are booming out there in a lot of markets. Perth, Townsville, Cairns, Gold Coast, Brisbane, Sydney, Adelaide. These markets are booming. And we've seen interest rates all the way up, and interest rates have gone up. Property prices have doubled. Doesn't make sense, right? Doesn't make sense. So imagine what will happen when the rates start falling as the interest rates go, as the rents go up. You've got two different movements there. You're just focusing on that getting hammered, and it can hurt when you're getting hammered. I've copped bananas for, I've had to eat so much shit over my years. So, do I know what it feels like? Probably more than anyone would ever want to go through, right? But it's going through that pain that takes you out the other side. It's like, hey, I see what's going on here, right? So just to remain diligent. If you need help or got questions or want a second opinion or whatever, reach out to my team, have a chat to us, let's have a look at your position and go, hey, what's not working, what's working great and what's not working great, what's sustainable for the future. Should we be looking at your portfolio and going, should we sell this one off and keep that one and sell one and buy 5 more, right? I've got investors today that I sell a property they bought 5 years ago, and they bought for 200, it's worth 700, they sell it off, they get $500,000, they go and buy a little block of units, and that gets them through to retirement. So there's lots of different moving parts there. So if you need help, reach out. Question number 10. Got number 11, which is when should you look at harvesting equity? We talked about that already, so I'm going to leave question 11 out. This is the final one here. What are common challenges investors face that make or break them? Like challenges, yeah. So I think if I look at my investors, I deal with them every day of the week. Each month, maybe 50 new investors. That would be, first time getting a property, right? And it's like excited. There's all different emotions. Everyone handles their emotions differently, right? I talked beforehand um, about mistakes that people make, but the challenges of specifics as far as like, I see people get freaked out over a pest and building report, and it's like you've got a leaking shower or leaking tap. It's like we recommend that this could be a potential structural defect, right? And that structural defect, you know, what is a leaking tap, right? So I see people get freaked out by pest and building reports. I see people get freaked out or annoyed. Right? I had an investor last week who got the shits that we'd lost like 4 deals, and I was like, hey, I texted, I was like, hey, right, I'm just as annoyed as you are that the deals are losing the deals, right? But I'm like, the markets are hot. It's what we've got to deal with. Let's deal with it. These deals you're making up, good, growth and equity and cash flow from those properties. So, looking at, the things people will look at. Oh, I should buy the house. I don't want to have a unit. Units aren't good for growth. Well, some of my worst cash flowing properties have been houses. Units have been my best, right? I'll say that very clearly and publicly, right? So, there's lots of challenges out there, but I think it's understanding the bigger picture, which I mentioned beforehand. So, on that note, I'll finish with my questions that I had. You guys have been asking questions through here, so I'm going to go on here. So, Raveen, how you doing, mate? Good to see you online. Matty says he will be talking to you soon. Speaking to Zing this week, awesome. Happy to help out however I can, whenever you're ready. Uh, Paul wants a pay rise. Send us all your properties at payrise at B.Invested.com.au, and we'll see what options are out there. Lisa says he would love how you look to see if we have equity often, offer more properties to purchase to get us going further on the journey to freedom. Lisa, very fitting for the email today. I think I saw you reply. I'm way behind in emails, but I'm going to have a chat with the team to see what we can do for your next stage. Rachel says, what do you think about subdivision? Subdivision can work. I don't subdivide. I've never subdivided. I don't like to build. I've bought lots of properties for development, never done anything with it. I look at the assets that I have and they just go up in value. If I was building and developing, then it's a whole other ball game. I got to build, sell. If you're building 50 units or 100 units, you're buying them, you're building them. You've got to sell them off because you're probably getting a loan for it or whatever, or you're getting land and subdividing it. What's the net result that you're achieving out the other side? And being a lazy investor, I like to buy stuff that it's, that's already got the cash in it from day one. No more gaps, no more skills. That's it. 90K, $400 a week, got to be mining. That one was. Not all the properties I buy that are cheap are mining. I get some in very beautiful locations and tropical locations and metro locations that are, very high yielding, very high yielding. So, I've got some in New South Wales for 200 grand for houses, coastal, region, rent for $400 a week at the moment. I just had a block of units that we did, a bulk deal, New South Wales mid coast. I think it was about 25 units we bought, 255 grand, revalued them a week later for 442 K. So there's like 20 plus investors that are very happy with the decision of what they've made. Not trying to gloat, I probably am trying to gloat, but that's just our handiwork of what we're getting out there. In 2022, 40% of all loans in Auckland were for over $1 million. When the tide went out, for those borrowers were left naked, all caused by the RBNZ printing money. Not look, they're on the verge of doing it again. If anyone is to blame if there's a recession, it's them, 100%, 100%. But what's going to happen on the other side is there to shake the tree. On the other side, there's going to be a whole new wave, and all the people are going to get back to the chessboard, and they're all going to want to play. So yeah. Nate says here, so much equity sitting in my portfolio, but very limited to servicing even after tier twos and threes. Nate, your name doesn't sound like the real name. I don't know who it is. If we're in contact, that's cool. Just send me a text or whatever. But if you're not, like, reach out to the team at Zynga. Like, let's see what options that you have. Um, with your portfolio, because a lot of people think, hey, I can't do something, but you can. A lot of people don't realize, and there's all different types of wonderful products, different lenders. We've got business people that can't get loans in their personal name, they go and get loans in their business, and they secure it with residential, and there's all different types of products and big four banks, and there's different products out there. So don't write yourself off so easy. There's people that get 10, 20, 30, 40 properties in their portfolio. They're not just waking up going, hey, I've got the best position, I'm on a killer income, or I've got a business that's like an ATM machine. There's lots of work to get there. So yeah. Lisa says those deals sound like a great deal. They are, and I thought that you guys would really appreciate where they're located, because you like that location. I like that location. I think it's amazing. So. What do you think of turning a property into a multiple occupancy property, especially if it wasn't too expensive to do so? Just depending, I'd have to look at all the numbers there. Possibility, like, if you're spending 10 grand and you're getting an extra $500 a week, then sure, why not? But I haven't done it personally. If I'm going to get a multiple occupancy property, I'm going to get a multiple occupancy property to run it as that. When you start chopping a property into smaller residences, you start finding new types of problems with the clientele that come through your property, and that's questionable. And is it really worth it in a lot of instances? So yeah, just a few things to look at from that perspective, plus your insurance. Paul says, have we missed a boat to buy with B.Invested or similar results overall as a few years back? I think, Paul, you were in the event in Melbourne last week. My team got up and spoke about deals that we've bought. Like, we've got an investor that just started, who's like an 18-year-old. I'm going to get him on the podcast maybe. 18-year-old bought his first property on like 50 grand a year or something. Saved up like 50k, bought a property, settled for 250, repaid it for 485 that week. It settled, which was I think a week ago, and then that's enabled him to buy 2 more properties, and you still have like another 50k sitting in the bank account. So there's an 18-year-old kid starting a month ago. Got another client that's just started and is at how many properties? He started with 50 grand at the start of the year. Bought one of those ones which were 255, repaid for 442. He's been able to get to 10, maybe 12 properties by Christmas, starting with 50 grand this year. So yeah, deals are out there. It's never too late, never too early, but just take action the best that we can. I think I'm getting stuck with going up much higher in the comments, and I don't want to keep everyone here too long. I see we're here for about an hour and a half, so I'm just going to answer some more of your questions. Chad says, when will this financial shit show end? 3 to 5 years. I'm scared to buy now, and I have heaps of equity. Chad, this financial shit show has been going on for thousands of years. The current show that we're in has been from our great ancestors, last 200 years, in the same format of how the financial system is. It keeps getting more scammier and scammier as time goes on. There's a lot of opportunities out there. I understand it can be fearful because there's lots of different angles to look at, but formulate a plan that is foolproof throughout any sort of cycle, and that fits well in line with your personal position and goals, and then start making the steps. Like, the worst thing you could do is to sit there and hope and wait, like people were not doing things at the start of Corona, and then we look at what happened over the last the 2 years following Corona, and things went stupid, and it was just from manipulation of that financial shit show that we talk about. So yeah. Luke says here, what point should you sell an underperforming property, or do you hold it through the next cycle? Depending on how badly underperforming it is, and what it is, there's lots of factors that I'd look at. I'd need to look at the deal and be like, hey, this is what I'd be doing in this situation. Um, Paul says, would you sell next year in WA market with its long cycle? Look, everyone thinks WA is the best thing out there, right? Good luck to them. Good luck to them. I see those cycles. I'm not an investor that's scared. I think that a lot of markets that have had boom bust cycles over the years, like Western Australia, um, they won't go back as volatile as what they were. The reason being we've got so much migration coming in, it's going to fill in all the cracks. So, do I think they're going to see Perth fall in half? I don't believe so. But do I see it going up? It's already doubled in areas, tripled. Do I think it's going to double and triple again from there? I'm very, very sceptical of what to purchase in WA. Um, I'd say 99% of stock is not good at the moment. The stuff that I was buying like 30 properties a month going back, I don't know, 3, 4 years ago in Perth, and I might be allocating like 3 to 10 properties a month now in Western Australia. So, yeah, looking at it, I'm cautious with what I'm buying, and do I think it's going to double again? There's some markets which are very, very good value. There's other markets which I don't see the value there. So, and I see that there's too much hype. So I'd rather be in an area where everyone's all doom and gloom because that's where the opportunities are. So I don't want the urgency and the competition amongst multiple buyers out there. I want to be able to buy with my terms and my freedoms and my abilities. So yeah, cool. So on that note, there's one question just popped back up. I'm going to answer this one before we go. Lisa asks, hey, Nate, can you please explain how it doesn't matter overall if the interest rate is a little higher with a lender if you can borrow with them over other lenders or even borrowing more money with them at a higher rate? Asking for a friend. Look, good question, Lisa. When I'm buying a property, right, let's just look at it from this perspective, right? I'm going to doodle on some paper here. So, no one's already got some scribble on it. I'm writing because it's all in my head. I don't know think of it yet, but I've got a few things. So let's just draw. Let's draw 2 more houses again. Two houses, once again, all the same. Let's say they're 200k loan, 200k loan, rent for $300 per week, $300 per week. So 200k rent for $300 a week. So $300 a week is 15,600. 200k at say 6% interest rate. 6% interest rate would be $12,000 a year. So if you're paying an interest rate of 6% on 200k, there's 12 grand, you get 15,600. That leaves you 3,600 to pay for council, water rates, real estate agent fees, whatever. It'd be fairly neutral, right? Let's say the other one, 200k, is at 8% and $300 per week. So 8% of 200, so it's 16k. $300 a week is 15,600. So that property there would be positive, or it would be fairly neutral, like after all expenses would be neutral. This one here would be negative $400 a week, so it might be negative about 4 grand a year. So if we take that 4 grand a year, I'm just using that 4 grand for expenses. 4 grand a year is $80 per week. Right? So if you're paying an extra 2%, yeah, it's going to be at $80 a week negative cash flow, right? But you're acquiring an asset, right? So if we come back in a year's time, and that property goes from 200k to 300k, 200k to 300k, you've got 100 grand in equity in it, right? Yeah, you've lost 4 grand in negative gearing. We haven't calculated your tax deductions, your depreciation, or anything like that, right? But looking at what the rents are for out there, and Lisa, you know that you've got some properties here that have got similar sort of numbers to theirs, where you've bought and they've rented for $300 per week, but you push the rent up to $350 or even $400 a week. So in the next year, if the rent goes to $400 per week, right, and it's costing you $80 a week to hold at $300 a week, then that property is now positive $20 per week, right? And then second to that, if you can go pull out 100 grand equity from it, 100 grand equity at 80% is 80 grand. There's two more deposits to buy two more of those properties. So that property might be costing you 40 bucks a week, 80 bucks a week. But if you've got the ability to pull out two deposits, there's properties number 3 and 4. So you're looking at purely just from a cash flow perspective, where you should be looking at from the overall, how's it going to help me out with a large part of the portfolio. Now, if we go and say, well, interest rates come back down next year, and you save 1% on that, well, then you're going to be in a better position. And then if we look at the interest rates coming down on that, then your servicing gets better. Then you can take that property from the 8% and refinance it at 6%, but the 6% no longer 6%, it's gone down to 5%. You're really saving 3% off that. 3% saving on 200 grand is 6 grand a year, or 120 bucks a week better off. That property now comes positive cash flow, 70, 80 bucks a week. So whatever it is on the day that you bought the asset, doesn't mean it's going to be what it's like in a year or two's time. So you need to have a bit of a look at the overall view of the portfolio and how the asset's going to fit there. I'm not a fan of having negative geared assets, but what's the property achieving for you? You could buy a property. I've got a client who's retiring at the moment. I've got him like 20 properties or so, and he's using his portfolio to go and pull out equity, and he's buying 3 blocks of units. And those things might be positive like 100, 150 grand a year positive cash flow. And what that would look like for him, having 100, 150k a year positive cash flow, is important. I remember the early point in his portfolio, I bought him Vaucluse, and he's like, this thing's negative 200 bucks a week. And I'm like, that's fine. That 200 bucks a week negative on that, I'm using it to pull out 200 grand worth of equity straight away, by the way. And then we use that to go and buy 3 properties which are positive cash flow. And that's positive cash flow more than 200 bucks a week. So it served its purpose in that portfolio. So yeah. See, there's a wave of questions coming through. I'll make another video on this stuff. If you need help more specifically, reach out to the team. I'll answer one more question and then we'll wrap it up for the day. Hey Birchie, what's your thoughts on land banking rezoning like the guys that made a killing on Green Wedge to PSP in Melbourne? I like land banking. Probably one of the worst decisions I've done in my portfolio was land banking. I bought so much land. The costs are shit. The expenses are so high. A lot of the big developments are institutional investors. If you think of holding a property that's 2 million, 5 million, 1 million, 3 million, and if the cash flow is negative 50 grand a year, 100 grand a year, 150 grand a year, you can make 10 mil on it, but it's negative 150 grand a year. You've got to hold it for 10 years, and you've got to put civils into it. Then it becomes 150 grand a year, 10 years, 1.5 that you've lost. And then you've also got to add civils into it. It's eating up a lot of your profit. And then, as Paul said there, half will go to taxes for to find such land in 2024. But yeah, there's opportunities out there. I don't think it's too bad, but overall strategy, what is it going to do? How's it going to get to where you want to be? Is the question that I'd be asking in the equation. So on that note, folks, thanks a lot for watching and tuning in today for the Tuesday Night Live. If you have any questions, reach out to my team, 1300 367 925. There's a link in the description of this video. You can book in a discovery session with my team. Who knows where a conversation leads you to? It appears that everyone's got questions. If you're not having conversations with us, who are you having the conversations with? You're having down at the pub, you're talking about it at the barbecue, you're talking about it with someone that knows nothing about it. I always think about these journalists, right? When they write these articles, these journalists have no assets. How can we take anything they say seriously? Right? They haven't done anything. So some of them are very, very good. I do know some very good journalists. So I'll take that back slightly. But 99% of the journalists don't know what they're talking about. So they've never been in the trench. So with that, we'll catch up soon. Reach out to the team, here to help you, and have a great week, and I'll see you in 2 weeks' time. Bye for now.